This is Breaking MedTech. I am Ryan. That is Cope. He is not running in the Kentucky Derby tomorrow, even though he's the size of a horse. And today we are going to be talking, that's a compliment. And today we are going to be talking about navigating a complex sales process in healthcare today.
Yes. By the way, my mom often says that her kids, of whom I'm one, are like thoroughbreds. And people laugh. She's like bad eyes and good teeth. Very few cavities, terrible eyes. Has nothing to do with our speed. Thanks,
Or your
Grace.
size.
Thanks, Grace, for a joke that's made people laugh for decades now.
I don't think people, maybe it's not as big of a, you ever stand next to a horse and you go, wow, you are massive.
Yes.
Yeah. Please, horses scare me.
Yeah. So this is our very special Kentucky Derby version.
Yes.
Now people know it isn't because if it were, I'd be wearing seersucker.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I'm afraid it makes me look tall. So we're going to talk about complex sales, not processes, customers that we deal with in healthcare today. Because Ryan, I would submit to you that these days, because of multiple market changes that have happened the past 10 years, hyper accelerated the past 5 years, that we are now selling into complex entities, regardless of if our end user, doctor, for example, is in private practice or operates somewhere or practices in a different part. It doesn't matter. What we have found is that everything now is more complex. And I don't mean it like a math problem. I mean, there's more people involved.
Yeah.
And there's every department is really starting to understand that they're interconnected, right? And there's up and downstream effects. So we'll give some examples, but it has changed dramatically in the 20 years I've been in med device and the 28 I've been in healthcare, right? So I've been selling for 28 years to doctors, and I've been selling for 28 years to doctors, and it has changed dramatically. And not for the better or for the worse. It's just changed.
And it's going to continue to change, right?
Right.
What I would tell you is what it looks like today is probably not what it's going to look like in 20 years from now. And that doesn't mean that it's going to get better or worse. It's just going to continue to change.
Yeah. Well, I would urge people to get rid of the better or worse thought process, right?
It's just different.
And you'll talk to people who are my contemporaries who've been in the business for, let's say, a decade or three, right? And they'll say, oh, the good old days. And I get it, right? But for the younger audience that we also have, they don't know any differently. They're like, oh, that sounds wonderful, right, Grandpa? But what do we do today, right? And what I would say is complaining about how the market has changed is like complaining about the weather, right? Like nobody's interested. Nobody wants to care. This is the weather pattern. You're either bringing an umbrella or wearing heavier or lighter clothes, and you're going out into the world and trying to succeed, right? Like, so get past this.
I will also tell you, like, the funny part is the people who complain about it, like being we'll call it your generation or older, who complain like, oh, it's so much. You know who does it? Like my dad has been selling for, let's see, almost 40 years. Okay.
I was going to say he might have hit 40 years.
It might actually be over 40 years because he was, is it Cheeseboro Ponds? Is that a company? Or was a company? So he sold like digital probes for them a very long time ago. So selling for 40 years. Okay. So
in healthcare.
Has been selling in healthcare for 40 years. Yeah. He seems to be successful in no matter what decade.
As I've stated, I think he's the single best medical device sales rep I've ever met. Right. And I like to think I'm pretty good. I think he's the best. And what I mean by that is we're not reviewing his experience today, but he has pivoted
Yeah, you
without
just figure it out.
complaint, he's gone and figured it out. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And he's a salesperson.
Yeah.
And hey, you know what? It looks like it's going to rain. Well, I better buy an umbrella and know what I'm going to do, right? Like, he doesn't whine and complain. I have great admiration for that. And he sells a lot of stuff. Right? Whatever he's selling, he tends up being the number one rep.
I think he's always the number one rep.
Right. But he's a good example of what the way people should be thinking, which is, here is the landscape. How do I succeed in this landscape? And the landscape has changed. When your dad and when I got into it, it was what I like to joke, generally speaking, DTC, direct to clinician, because clinicians held the decision-making power. So I'd call on an ER doctor, and he liked our antibiotic. He would say, we got to get this in here. And about 3 weeks later, it would be in there. And, right, but that was mission accomplished. And then you had to drive usage, right? Now, the same thing there have to be multiple people who buy in and understand and hopefully get wins by adding your product to their facility. And sometimes those people aren't doctors.
Nope.
Sometimes they're nurses. Sometimes they're business people. Sometimes they're supply chain. And sometimes you can't please everybody. But you have to understand that this is what I mean by complex. There's multiple stakeholders and multiple people who have inputs that are important and potential vetoes that can table it. And whether you like it or not, this is the world in which we sell. And so we have to understand how to succeed in that. The good news is the playbook's been written in every other industry that's gone through this, because most industries have gone through this. Med device just happens to be doing it now because of consolidation of healthcare, large health systems, because doctors have sold their practices and have become employees. So instead of being the man or woman, they often work for the man or woman, right? So it's a different dynamic. Better, worse, take it outside. I'm not interested. This is the world in which we sell. It's complex, right? So did I describe that way, Ryan, that people would understand? Because I feel like it's really hypercharged in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And can we
mega mergers? Yeah.
You and I talked about this yesterday. I think it was yesterday. We talked about the fact that, like, I don't want to go into details of like why it happened, but it did happen for a reason. It's not like healthcare as a whole just woke up one day and was like, hey, we're going to go in this direction. They went in this direction because they're trying to be better at running a business. And whether you say that's like how healthcare should be ran, that's not my call. It's not Cope's call. It's not anyone's call. But a lot of the changes that you see is because they're trying to be run as a business. The funny part is, like, I understand where people come from with certain things, with like these large hospitals scooping up small hospitals and getting rid of regional hospitals and people having to travel, like all of those things.
No.
But you don't ever see people complain when like Honeywell owns half of the manufacturing world.
Well, here's a parallel I'll draw, and I think you just made a really good example, right? Remember when Amazon and Walmart, particularly Walmart, were gobbling up, like they were running moms and pops out of business, right? And Amazon came in, and moms and pops sort of don't exist the same way that they used to, right? This is what we're seeing in healthcare right now. Yeah, the Walmartization. I hope you don't wear your slippers to the hospital, though. Like I see in every Walmart I tend to walk into, stumble into. Yeah, but I would say, like, what we saw there, they were always talking about, Main Street businesses are being closed. Accurate. Yeah. Better or worse? No idea. Not for me to say. but it's what's happening, and it's what's happening in healthcare now, right? Like, I'm glad you brought that because that's actually a really good way to draw a parallel to.
Yeah, it happens. It happens in every industry. It happens at some point. Some industries, I guess, it doesn't happen, or it might happen in the future. I don't really know, right? So when you think about today and how you navigate sales, what does that process look like for you? And if you want, I can give you a specific product.
No, well, maybe, but let me think of it this way. When I was selling something 20 years ago, that neurologists and psychiatrists and sleep medicine doctors, right? I called on neurologists, psychiatrists, sleep medicine doctors, and I was like, that is who I call on. They make the decision, they make the call, done, right? Got into spine, same thing. But this change has occurred, and now you're thinking, okay, I know who my clinical targets, my doctor targets are, or the nurse who runs the department, right? Clinical lead. And I still start there. But now when I get interest, I have to know who else is going to be involved. And it's generally the same thing. So you map it out. Like if I was calling on an emergency department in a health system of 8 hospitals, right? They have 8 emergency departments. 2 of them are level 1 trauma, for argument's sakes. I know that I got to get people from as many doctors from as many of those emergency departments interested. But I also need to get the business leaders of the emergency department service lines, potentially in all of them, potentially in one spot in the health system, involved. They're business people, right? I'm going to have to sing the supply chain at some point. I know all this. So I have to, when I don't run in and do everything I can to just talk to the emergency department doctors like I used to when I was 25 years ago. Now I'm coming and going like, who is it? I'm doing research. Who are these people? Who moves the needle here? Who runs this place? Not just who are the doctors. Who has to be involved? And if somebody says, I like this, I'm telling them, like, okay, now we got to go get other people buying. Can you help me with that? And it's a more complex map. You got to put it on a whiteboard. You got to say, who are the people, the roles, the positions that I need to get on board? And so, like, it's different, right? It's complex.
It's
title.
And it's complex. And how I think it affects most of these groups is it affects timelines, right? So if you're a founder or a leader or a sales leader, and you got to answer to a board, or you got to you have a certain time that you're going to run out of cash, or whatever your situation is, just know that in today's world, it's going to take longer than you probably anticipate. And if you figure that in from the start, I think it's better. Do you think, because I actually think that this might be the case, but I'll default to you. If you're taking this approach, do you think it's easier actually now to expand? So if you're successful in one site, do you think it's easier to expand into multiple sites in today's world than it was previously? So let's look at it as like a benefit.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Partly because when you show success, initial success in a facility as part of a larger system, or you have a bunch of people interested, you can go flip switches faster in multiple sites. So you can scale more quickly. The issue is, can you set the table right and get? It's a really good question, and I hadn't really thought exactly. I'm thinking while I'm describing this, but because we have to have, generally speaking, 3 to 4. We're going to have 3 to 4 different audiences for our product: clinical, business, supply chain, and sometimes, it depends, staff. But there's at least 4 different audiences, which any good marketing person like Ryan will tell you means 4 different messages, maybe 4 different stories, right?
Yep.
That's what's making it complex. And so, but once you do that, once you understand that, your impact within a health system and other health systems becomes like you're throwing old school term here. You're not throwing hooks and jabs. You're throwing haymakers because you know what everybody cares about, and you know where the general group objections are and general group wins are. You start hitting grand slam home runs, not little bunt singles down the third baseline.
And I know that you often joke about this, like, you know who succeeds in this world more often than not? You said it to me the other day. It was like capital salespeople, because this is something capital salespeople have had to do forever.
They understand there's multiple people have to sign off, many of whom have no idea the clinical benefit of what they're signing off on. It's take a page out of their book, because they've been doing this for a while. They actually sort of scratch their head when I talk about this. They're like, yeah, duh. I'm like, well, thank you. Thank you for the non-condescending response. Duh. But that's what they do. And that's why there's this med device sales is becoming a different beast, right?
The
customers are different beasts.
The customers are different beasts, and like honestly, I'll joke for. I know you'll enjoy this because I'm making fun of this industry. All of the ortho bros all the older ortho bros like your age who were best friends with the doctors, and that's how they got business. I feel like they're the ones who complain the most about this change, because you can't really do that anymore. And we're gonna let's tackle another thing is like, for all of those people who think, well, I can do this, the doctor just needs to be in an ASC, or you tell me. How many ASCs are owned by one person?
Well, let's take it back to exactly what you said is the people that run ASCs. They're running a business, and they know it. So when you come in and you don't have your business buttoned up, look, you'll get a win or two because half the surgeons that are in ASCs are like, I don't know what we pay, I don't care, until they own the place, until they own part of it, and then like, well, wait a minute, man, we need to get an understanding of this, right? And I've talked to ASC administrators, I've talked to surgeon owners. They're like, yeah, I need to know what we pay. I need to know what the reimbursement is. I know what the this and that's a business discussion.
Yeah.
Because they're not in the business of delivering care and losing money. They're in the business of delivering care and making a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
And and if you are uncomfortable with that in this business, I would say don't be. Right? Like, because if you learn some of these things and you you realize that I need the ASC administrator, I need the director of nursing to understand this, I need the surgeon champ, and maybe the board, it's depending, to be willing to pay for this, invest in this, whatever I'm selling. Like, you're going to get your product delivered to patients faster and in greater numbers, which is the ultimate goal, right? That's the goal. It's just the playing field has changed a little bit. Well, a good bit. Let's be fair. It's changed a good bit, but it's not anything we can't do. And this is one of the things I urge these small companies that I talk to. I mean, I would urge big companies, but none of them
none of them listen to you.
Yeah, I mean, they're all smarter than me, right? Okay, we'll see. They want to go head to head, but here's what I tell the small med device companies is, instead of bringing in 10 clinical advisors, doctors, or bring in 9 and bring out ASC administrator in, or bring a service line coordinator. If you sell into the ICU, find out who runs the business of the ICU and bring him or her in. Oftentimes they're a nurse. They understand some of bring them in and say, tell us about this. What matters? You got to learn what that audience needs, because they're a different audience, right?
Yeah.
They'll tell you so much. You will be astounded at what you learn.
So, yeah, and I think as we tie this up, I think that is the important part. I wasn't ignoring you. I was writing down notes for how to close this. So, like, that is really important, because if you are going to, a lot of companies don't do this, right? What you just said of, I'm going to go bring in someone from, I want to go talk to 10 doctors. Okay. So like, if you're selling something into the OR, okay, or the emergency department. Let's say the emergency room department, okay? And you're selling something into the emergency room department, and ultimately it's going to be used by a trauma doctor, okay? To really do it, though, if you want to be successful, when you're developing your messaging, when you're doing all these things, and this is something a lot of these groups don't intentionally do, you should go speak to a couple trauma doctors. You should go speak to a couple ER directors.
Service line directors. Yeah.
Service line directors.
Department directors. Yeah.
The department director for the ER. You should go speak to a couple ER nurses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you want to know a funny thing, Ryan? You know why you don't call it ER anymore? Because they're a whole department now. Right? Like you're doing what most people do, but like I've literally had people say, "Hey, Mark, we're a whole department now. We're the emergency department." I'm like, "Sorry." And I learned that. Yeah, but
Apologies.
It's funny. Like you imagine talking to an audience of emergency department people, and I'm saying ER, they might be going like, "Does this guy really know what he's talking about?"
This idiot.
Right? Like he's calling us something from a TV show in the 90s.
That was a great TV show, I hear. Was George Clooney on it? I think so. So you're speaking. So here's the thing that I would take away for this. If you're a small company, you're speaking to multiple targets or multiple audiences, you need to adapt your messaging for each audience. That doesn't mean that for all of those who go like, well, what does my leading message be? Well, who's your leading person? Okay, so like this is something I get asked sometimes of like, well, I have multiple audiences. What should my website say? What should my homepage say? You'd be like, who's the first person going to your homepage? Talk to that person, right? That's the most important person.
It's actually good. It's actually a good question and good advice.
Yeah,
by the way,
that's a great question. That's what you should do, right? And then you should have messaging aligned for this person, this stakeholder, this stakeholder, this stakeholder, right? You need to really that means you really need to understand your customers. So you should go and talk to different people. One of the things that you always told me that you do, which I think is a great thing, is like you have no problem walking into a department that you don't know and going, I love insulting Mark or Cope. I'm a big dum-dum. Please explain this to me like I'm a child.
Big dumb Cope.
And Big Dumb Cope is actually extremely intelligent because he's doing a rope-a-dope and playing dumb and going, oh, I don't know this. Can you explain it to me? Right? And that means you have to go out and actually talk to customers and actually understand what they care about. Don't just guess. Don't make an educated guess. Go and talk to them.
Right. I would say make educated guesses to start and then go test your educated theories.
Yeah.
And let these people tell you if you're right or wrong.
Yeah. And that's fine, right? Scientific method, right? I learned about that in 3rd grade. And then the other big thing to take away is like you're going to have a longer timeline. This is not, I'm going to Dr. Cope and I'm like, check this out. And he's like, dude. And I'm like, dude. And then he's like, go see Nancy in purchasing. And then I go see Nancy in purchasing. I was like, here's the pricing. Cope said I can use it. Yeah. He's using it tomorrow. Get used to it.
Those days are deader than Elvis, as I like to joke. Yeah.
And here's the benefit, though. If you get your shit together and you actually deliver on what you're supposed to deliver, you have a better chance to scale because now you have a connected network and a repeatable process. And I don't just take my word for this, even though, again, you could. I was reading a post from Omar, who was talking about former VP of sales, or he's a VP of sales, and he went into a network it was a single hospital that had one robot, okay? And they weren't using it. Surprise, surprise, right? Because this happens a lot. They buy something, they don't use it, they hate it. Let's get it out of here. And the guy turned it around where it went from 1 to then it was in 95 robots across all of this network. So it had to have been like an HCA or an Ascension for that type of expansion. Mm-hmm. But you want to know, I could almost guarantee you, if we sat down with this guy, he would be very good at navigating a complex selling environment to go from 1 or 2 robots at one hospital to 95 robots across an entire network.
Yep. System selling for system customers.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're in these days. And if you're not, you will be, right?
Yeah.
So
it'll happen eventually.
Yeah. So hopefully we gave some tips to, I would say, first of all, don't argue with it. Don't debate it. Recognize it for what it is, and then figure out how you go win. Whiteboard who your audiences are. Figure out what your message to each audience is. And if you know you don't know it, that's cool. No better time to find out than now. Either come up with a theory and go test it, or better yet, just go sit down and channel your own big dumb cope.
Yeah.
And start asking questions. You will be amazed at what you find, and they will teach you things you didn't know about your product that are valuable to health systems, and that's where you start to go from 1 robot or whatever to 95.
Yeah.
Because now your impact is translates across the system. Totally does.
Yes.
Totally does. So hopefully, Rye, well, do we do that a decent job on that?
I think we did a great job.
Well,
it's a very special episode.
Let's stay humble here. Let's not act like Tyrese Halliburton's dad, okay?
Just staring. Just staring a giant human being down. This has been Breaking MedTech.
Talk to you next time.
See ya.